So Ryan, in the first chapter, all the soldiers are going off to Iraq and saying bye to their families, right?
Yeah, that's where they introduced the first character, Jason Banks. He has a fiancée and his mom is going through chemotherapy while he's going to war.
Oh yeah, so he's going to have a lot of mental stress with all of the things happening back at home while he's going to war.
So the next character they introduce is Derek Jackson, right? Who reconnects with one of his high school friends who's also going into Iraq.
Yeah, Jackson's the only main character that doesn't really have any motivational support for leaving. He has his parents who didn't show up, and he doesn't have a girlfriend. Unlike his high school friend who has a wife and a kid.
Oh yeah, Erica Mendez is introduced, and she has trouble sleeping because she has flashbacks of when she got her arm torn off when she was in war by shrapnel.
Yeah, and she's another character that's actually leaving someone behind as well.
Yeah, the final character that we usually see is John Wallace. John Wallace has been to Iraq before. He has a wife, 2 kids, and a dog.
Oh yeah, that's the character that on his last night spent time working at his family's tool shop rather than spending time with his family.
Yeah, so Wallace comes home late. His wife's upset about him because the kids made him a cake and a going away party for him on his last day, and she's not really happy about that because she wants her kids to be happy and see their dad before he goes. In the first chapter, you learn about how the characters are getting situated to go to Iraq, and then you learn in the next chapter how they get situated, how they get comfortable with being in a war, being in a different country that's totally different from theirs, and some of them are having a decent time with that, but some are having a hard time with that. An example of that is John Wallace. When you see in the novel, John Wallace has flashbacks of when he was in Iraq before, when he was attacked, his platoon. He tries to help as many as he can, but unfortunately he couldn't help everyone, and he is mentally scarred for this, and you see that before, too, in the first chapter, when he seems depressed.
Later in the book, the soldiers are patrolling the streets, and they pass a dead donkey in the middle of the road. Little did they know there was a bomb in the donkey's mouth, and they were ambushed by terrorists. These soldiers are then patrolling again, and see an Iraqi kid holding a paper bag that could be containing a bomb, and is going to throw it at the soldier's truck. Webster is ordered to shoot at him, but he disobeys his orders because he knows that it is morally wrong to shoot at a child. Later, the soldiers are pinned down by a sniper in the middle of a town. The sniper shoots Dog and kills him. The soldiers are hit hard by his death because they realize how brutal war can be because they lost a loved one. Later in the novel, the soldiers go to a funeral to provide security. During the funeral, there is a suicide bomber who detonates the bomb and injures Jason. Jason then hallucinates of a floating head saying all Americans are going to die, and later wakes up in a hospital screaming no.
The last section of the novel shows how the soldiers recover after war. Many soldiers are waking up from their rest after being injured throughout their time in the service. As this part of the novel continues, it shows how the soldiers have a meeting to discuss Dog's death and how they feel about it. The last chapter of the book begins by showing a flashback Mendez has about how Dog dies, followed by her return to her boyfriend she left at home. Wallace is the next soldier to be shown returning to his wife and kids. To finish off the novel is the epilogue section. This section shows Wallace sharing with his wife that he would like to return to the service to continue fighting. In the last few pages of the novel, the panels are shown with very little dialogue as Mendez visits Dog's grave to say goodbye.
One of the most important parts in the novel, in my opinion, is when Jason Banks is in the little town in Iraq with the other soldiermen, and they see this one citizen, and he looks like he's dangerous and armed because he's all sleeved and covered, but it turned out there's this one other guy who had a heavy jacket on, that Jason figures out is the actual threat. He has a bomb strapped onto him, and he commits suicide for his country, and Jason luckily survives.
I think one of the most important parts of the book is when the soldiers are in their car patrolling, and they see a group of children throwing rocks at their car, and one of the soldiers is ordered to shoot at the kid, but he doesn't because he knows that it's morally wrong.
So I think one of the most important parts of the book was when Jackson died, because the rest of the people in his squad were hit really hard by that, because they finally realized how brutal war actually is, because they lost someone they loved.
The page I traced was page 29. On this page, John Wallace comes home to find his wife upset with him because he came home late from working at the tool store when his kids prepared a very nice... This page is important because it shows that Wallace is not very happy, and his wife is still not understanding. This is also important because it shows the mental stress of being in the army and being a doctor, and seeing all those people dying, and you feeling like that you can help them. And you can see through that, even though he's not saying anything about it, that he is still struggling. Another thing is that a person being in the army can leave mental stress with the family, and this shows another example of that. When his wife is not happy with him coming home late, her thinking that he is unhappy, but he is somewhat unhappy, even though he says he's not, because he's not doing what he wants to do. He's working at a tool store, but yet he still wants to be out there which is what he's going to do later in the book.
The panels that I chose to trace are on page 108, part 4 of the graphic novel. This page shows a lot of importance to the graphic novel, because this is an example of how human nature shines through even in the face of war. The panels are showing the situation where Jenkins is ordered to shoot at an Iraqi kid because he has a suspicious paper bag that could contain a bomb. Jenkins disobeys the order to shoot at him because he knows that it is inhumane to shoot at a child who seems suspicious.
The panels that I chose to trace are on page 157. These panels show how soldiers can be affected mentally from war. These panels, in particular, show a soldier having a dream where the head of the terrorist that was killed beside him is talking to him. These panels also show how the terrorist wants the soldier to give up hope because he tells him that there's no way his country will win.
How do the novels you read appropriately address their central question, what is human nature and how do you know? Human nature in this novel is to fight to protect the ones you love. All of the soldiers left their families to fight in Iraq to try and make the world a better place. They each try to protect each other in any way they can. One example is when Banks warns his friends about the suicide bomber and saves their life. Another character shows us his human nature when Jenkins disobeys the order to shoot the child because he knows it is wrong to do. Human nature is different for everyone, whether it is trying to protect the ones you love or knowing the difference between right and wrong.
How do these graphic novels promote skills development and new content knowledge among students? The things that we learned in graphic novel have helped promote visual skills by looking very closely on each panel, because the panel can mean something important to the story and not just words in a panel or a character. Every panel has a purpose to the story, even if you think it doesn't.
How are these novels effective tools for learning and promoting reading among people our age? By reading this graphic novel, people can understand how hard it must be to leave their families and everything that they have ever known to fight for the safety of their country. Each part of this graphic novel depicts a different leg of the journey that every soldier goes through in creating and preserving their lives back home. The warfare games that many teenagers play only allows the player to see the exciting and adrenaline side of fighting rather than the harsher side of sacrifice shown throughout this graphic novel.
Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing.